Firefighters show up to a house call one afternoon in early 2023 and find a woman at the bottom of the stairs after what appears to be an accidental fall. Upon looking further, however, the first officer notices that her throat has been slit and the hunt is on for a savage killer. My name is M. William Phelps. I'm an investigative journalist and the New York Times best-selling author of dozens of true crime books. I've dedicated the past 25 years of my life to helping families of the missing and murdered. Join me. We're crossing the line. At 525 South Avenue in Missoula, Montana, there's a yellow house on a corner lot with 5 bedrooms and 4 bathrooms spread over about 3,700 square feet. Standing on the side of the garage, the next-door neighbor is so close you could spit and hit their house. This is a suburban neighborhood, quaintly charming, with modest homes set on small parcels of acreage. People know each other, they stay in touch, and they keep watch on what is happening around them. Missoula is kind of tucked in between 2 massive sections of the Lolo National Forest, one of the great wonders found in this country. The city's elevation is just over 3,200 feet with 78,000 residents. Located on the far western side of the state, they call it the hub of 5 valleys because 5 different mountain ranges converge here. I could go on about the beauty and history of the city, but I think you get the picture. This is God's country, as they say, picturesque and serene. Wherever you look, jaw-dropping landscape only nature can produce. The last place, in other words, you'd think one would worry about being murdered inside their own home. But here we are, a murder show, plopped down into the heart of Missoula with all its grace and loveliness, and the worst thing imaginable happens. The point I think I'm trying to make is, evil can find its way into just about any situation when the door to walk through presents itself. It's May 13th, 2023, a Saturday, one day before Mother's Day. It's about 12:30 p.m., just past midday. 21-year-old Miles Miller is at home, and he is on the telephone with the Missoula police describing how he just found his lovely mother, Tycho, whom they call Terry, unconscious, covered in blood, lying on the floor at the bottom of the stairs down into the basement. This is how I found her, Miles explains. She is not breathing. Miles comes across as this nerdy type of kid. Stringy, wild hair, parted on the left side, cut above his ears, tight to his head, red lips, nearly perfectly trimmed eyebrows, sad eyes, and a fat baby face. Firefighters arrive at the Miller residence first. Police are not far behind. The female is dead, a fireman on scene tells the first officer. But you should get the coroner out here. The officer then walks over to Terry Miller's body and touches it. She's very cold and probably been dead for quite some time. The officer then looks around and sees there is blood everywhere, surrounding Terry's body, on the walls, along the steps leading down into the basement, and up on the landing heading downstairs. The officer tells firefighters they can leave, and he begins to secure the house as a crime scene. As he is doing this, he notices a bucket with what he describes in his report as white vinegar cleaning supplies inside of it, along with an unused mop next to the bucket. looking closer at Terry's body, he can see she has a large gash on the back of her head and another large gash across the top of her forehead. So big, in fact, a section of her white skull is actually exposed. Then, kneeling, staring at Terry's neck, he notices that her throat has been slit from one side to the other, or, as he describes it, from ear to ear. The wound is so deep that her esophagus has been exposed. She obviously has not fallen down the stairs. Moving his eyes slowly across her body, the officer uncovers small slits or slices along Terry's fingers. Defensive wounds, apparently. There is also additional blood about 6 feet in front of her body. As the officer waits for investigators to arrive, he finds Terry's boy, Miles, who had discovered his mother's body, and asks him to step outside where they can have a chat. In a situation like this, no matter how traumatic and hard it is for the victim's family to answer questions so quickly, you have to get any information you can out of them as fast as you can before they even have time to think about it. That is so important. After all, a clock seems to be now ticking, with a brutal killer on the loose. "Can you tell me what happened?" the officer begins. "I woke up from a nap," Miles says. He's understandably shaken up and seems nervous. "I was sleeping all morning. I feel so damn guilty. I feel like I screwed up." "Why is that?" the officer asks him. "I sleep with my headphones on and a fan going, and I am hard of hearing," Miles says. The notion he projects is that if he had only heard the killer come in, he could have maybe helped his mother and prevented her murder. "When did you last see your mother?" "Last night, around 7 p.m. She generally goes to bed early, so I do too." As they speak further, Miles says he remembers waking up around 8 a.m. and grabbing a banana from the kitchen, adding, "I have 3 cats and I fed one of them. I don't really remember what else I did before going back to sleep." He says that he then woke up around noon. He played with his cat and decided to check on the other cats, all of whom basically live in the basement. And that's when I found my mother. There's this quiet lull in the conversation, an eerie silence hovering over the two of them. Investigators are now arriving, more crime scene people as well, and the scene is beginning to be processed. The officer asks Miles about his mother. "She was suicidal," Miles says. The officer gets the impression upon talking to him further that Miles believes her death has to be a suicide because of all the mental health issues she's struggled with. "My dad died last year from a heart attack and fell down the stairs," Miles adds. Miles explains he is one of 3 kids with 2 sisters, one in Texas and another not far away. While talking to him, the officer looks down at Miles's hands and notices they are swollen and have small, fresh scratches on both. Miles picks up on this. "I have a skin condition," he notes. "They crack and bleed, and I generally have to wear latex gloves." An investigator walks in, stands and listens to the exchange Miles is having with the officer, then walks over to the cellar door and down the stairs. He begins to look around. Blood spatter tells a story if you know how to read it. Blood does not get on walls and tossed across the floor like someone took a paintbrush with red paint and flicked it without some kind of force propelling it. That's just crime scene 101. Down at the bottom of the stairs, the investigator carefully walks in front of Terry's body and stares at the blood on the floor right there. That blood is not spatter, but droplets. which tell a different story. If you see blood droplets, it means they fell from an object or dripped off a body or something else, kind of like sweat falling from the tip of your nose onto the floor. Back upstairs, listening to the conversation with Miles, the investigator notices Miles has this, as the investigator later described it, flat effect. Doesn't really mean much right now because people respond in myriad ways to tragedy. Yet it is noticeable. Miles is talking about how his mother was sure to lock the back door every night with what he calls a special locking mechanism because she grew up in a crime-infested neighborhood in California and was used to protecting herself however she could. She was religious about locking the doors, Miles tells police. But when I got up, the back door was unlocked. The investigator walks out the back door. He stops, notices tall, uncut grass leading up to the door, along with lots of weeds. If Terry's killer came in through the back door, the grass and weeds would have been tamped down. But the landscape appears to be undisturbed. An officer then walks out onto the grass just to kind of test the theory, and sure enough, wherever he walks, the grass looks like someone had stomped through it. What's more, the yard is fenced in with a padlocked chain fence gate, which has also been undisturbed. So, Terry's killer did not come in through the back door. That is for certain. By now, it's just past 2 p.m., heading toward 3 p.m. Miles says he has to get to work at the hospital, where he has a job working in maintenance. Work? Mate, your mother has just been viciously murdered and you want to go clock in for your shift? It's kind of weird. They tell him not to worry about going to work today. Obviously. Also, they ask Miles if he has called anyone else in the family to let them know what happened. No, he says. Investigators begin thinking about Miles and his behavior, which now seems to be borderlining on peculiar, beyond the pale of someone stunned and shocked and not acting like themselves. Also, something keeps bothering them. Why didn't the attacker also target Miles? Why choose Terry to kill and then take off? They tell Miles he needs to come down to the station house to answer some questions they still have. Sure, he says, not a problem. Let's break here. You are listening to Crossing the Line with M. William Phelps. And please, if you can, check out my narrative podcast, Paper Ghosts, Season 5, The Texas Teen Murders, now with all 9 episodes out, so you can binge the entire season. Get it for free wherever you find your favorite shows. Be right back. Miles Miller has this boyish Cub Scout look about him. Yes, he's only 21 years old on the day his mother is murdered, but he looks much younger. At the time of his mother's murder, Miles is a bit chubby too. He's short and kind of comes across a bit homely and strange, which doesn't make him a killer. Terry, or Tycho Miller, was 68 years old, had long black hair, which she liked to tie up in the back. Her family describes Terry as a loving, caring, hilarious, vivacious mother and friend to everyone. She had that likable quality about her, one of which, if you met her, it felt almost instantly as if she was your friend and would do anything for you. She was born in Japan and came to the States in 1959 after being adopted by a Japanese-American couple. Taiko adored fishing with her father in and around Sacramento, California, where she grew up. For most of her life, she worked for the state of California. In 1996, after wanting children, she was ecstatic to have been told she was having twins and soon gave birth to her 2 girls, with Miles coming after. It was 2007 when she found her dream house in Missoula, Montana, and made the move after losing her husband. She took a job at Walmart and then wound up working for the local hospital, and after that, the Heart Institute, helping people. At the Missoula PD, Miles is led into a small interview room. He sits down, and they give him a cup of water and a can of Pringles. Strangely, he uses the sleeve of his shirt to wipe the lid of the cup and then the table in front of him. They explain that they should read him his Miranda rights just for the sake of the interview. He has no issue with this, he says, and is more than willing to talk to them and help in any way he can. Miles once again goes through the previous night and the next day when he found his mother's body. And just so you know, they tell him, this is being investigated as a homicide, not an accident. Oh, Miles says, I'd hate to say anything contradictory to what I said earlier, so I think maybe I should have a lawyer. So they stop the interview immediately. By the time they finish with Miles, a search warrant for the house has come in and investigators are now inside, combing through everything in more detail. The first odd thing they find is the green light on the dishwasher blinking, which means that the dishes inside are done. Who does dishes at a crime scene after finding your mother dead? They open it up. Inside is a small, ivory-handled knife with a serrated edge. There's your murder weapon. Take that to the bank. In here, someone calls out from the bathroom. There, on the floor, is a brand new bath mat. Indications on it tell them that the thing had just been removed from its packaging. Downstairs in the basement, they begin to look around. They first see that all of the basement windows are intact and no one could have entered the home through the basement. Then they find a closet. They open the door and they see that it is kind of neat and tidy inside, except for 2 large black plastic garbage bags tied up and just sitting there. Investigators kind of look at each other. It's a WTF moment. Now, if you've been following Crossing the Line and the recent spate of episodes we've done, there is a theme happening, one of which I have not planned, but has happened rather serendipitously. Stupid people committing murder. Like really dumbass people doing dumbass things post-murder and actually believing they are going to get away with it. Here we have yet another example of this same jackassery. My word. Inside those 2 garbage bags, investigators find an old bath mat, a black rubber sandal similar to its sister sandal found at the top of the stairs. The sandal inside the garbage bag is covered in blood and also has bits of flesh stuck to it. The flesh and the blood are still wet. On the sole of the sandal is also wet blood. Looking further, they find those hospital booties you would wear over your shoes, the same type that crime scene investigators wear. There is also a letter in the bag, a piece of mail, with some writing on it that states this: Mom is trying to destroy us. It's in Miles' handwriting, clearly. Digging further, there is a pair of gloves and a section of white carpet with bloodstains. The section of the carpet is a puzzle piece match to a section of the same carpet cut from where Terry's body was found at the bottom of the stairs. Now, I am no rocket scientist by any means, but what is Terry's killer thinking at the time he places this bag inside the closet in the basement of the home 10 yards from her body? Ah, yes, I'll just hide these 2 garbage bags here, close the door, and nobody will ever find them. Even stupider is that crime scene techs find Terry's blood on the doorknob into the bathroom and blood on the doorknob into Miles's bedroom. Then they get hold of one of Miles' sisters, who tells them she is very close to Miles and that he suffers from depression and severe anxiety. Don't we all? As they begin talking to her, the coroner comes back and tells them that Terry was murdered about 9 p.m. the previous night, Friday. Miles called me on Friday night, the sister explains. He was in an absolute state of panic and anxiety and anger, so bad I had a difficult time understanding what he was saying. He was also slamming doors during the conversation and being very loud. She says the conversation lasted for almost 2 hours and the call began at 10:14 p.m. That's funny. Miles said he went to sleep earlier and never mentioned talking to his sister. So, why was he so amped up? They ask the sister if she can recall anything he might have said. He did mention how a few years ago he took some LSD and was looking in the mirror, and he said he saw the devil looking back at him, and he thought he was actually the devil and it haunted him. Like he had this predetermined destiny to become the devil. Miles and his sister had also texted that day, Saturday, after their mother's body had been found. And he never mentioned that their mother was dead, only that his anxiety was better. That's all behavior of a guilty man. In total, Terry suffered 30 stab wounds on top of that slit from ear to ear across her throat. That's a horrible way to die. This woman suffered greatly. Those garbage bags they found inside the closet in the basement that Albert freaking Einstein put there under the pretense no one would ever find them, when they got them back to the lab, they found even more alarming and incriminating evidence left behind by Terry's killer. I'll get to that in the conclusion of this case right after a short break. You are listening to Crossing the Line with M. William Phelps. They arrest Miles, obviously. His mugshot is interesting. He is actually smiling, this little smirk, which says, at least to me, you've arrested me, but you ain't gonna get those charges to stick. It's almost as if he is taunting police in this image. Like, I am smarter than you. Just wait and see. As capers go, this one is not some sort of Agatha Christie creation. And I might say in that regard, if you are paying particular close attention to contemporary murder cases, you'll see this same pattern playing out. Murders being solved within a few days' time, which would have years ago taken weeks and months. I don't know if murderers are just stupider today, or investigators are smarter, or technology plays a role, or it's a combination of all of the above. But murders these days are being solved very quickly. I guess part of this involves the processing of evidence taking a lot less time today. This case in particular is handed to these investigators on a silver platter. I mean, served up to them like an open court slam freaking dunk. Miles should have just answered the door and said, "Come on in, I just killed my mother. Let me show you around and point out all the evidence I left behind." And look, anxiety and depression, which the entire world suffers from today, is not an excuse or a murder defense. So I just want to put that out there. When all is said and done, the motive they quickly figure out is once again one of the oldest on record: greed. Miles wanted his mother's money via what he would get for an inheritance. It seems that Miles was tired of cleaning toilets and mopping floors at the local hospital. Following a more thorough search of the garbage bags, investigators discover a pair of sweatpants and a t-shirt with blood stains and suspected human tissue on them. There were also multiple pieces of paper beyond that letter I mentioned earlier, in which handwritten notes were found. These statements included this gem: alibi, break in next door, and she has too much power, no regrets, no remorse. Disassociate, but don't answer questions with specifics. Ask what happened. Act dumb. Act sad. See it as a game. Imagine viewing the brutal murder of your own mother as a game. The notes show clear premeditation and planning. As Miles went to trial in September 2025, he had clearly lost a lot of weight and came across, perhaps as a ploy, looking like a 12-year-old boy sitting in the courtroom. He didn't look like the smirking, wild child hiding evidence inside the closet of his house and leaving his mother's blood on doorknobs all over the place. Of course, when you have nothing else to defend a murderer, you resort to the O.J. Simpson defense: attack the science. So Miles' defense was based on going after the collection of DNA, the testing of DNA, and so on. I mean, I get it. You have to defend your client somehow. But this dude hands them their case and doesn't even follow his own damn advice, which he had written out and stuffed inside a plastic garbage bag of other incriminating evidence found feet away from the victim. I can say without a doubt in my mind, this stupid son of a bitch was never, ever going to get away with this murder from the moment the sick and twisted plan popped up in his brainless head. The jury, of course, convicts Miles. His sentencing is scheduled for sometime this year. That's it for this week. Be safe, be aware. Sources for this episode include Motion for Affidavit, State of Montana versus Miles Otis Miller, May 17th, 2023. Crossing the Line is executive produced by M. William Phelps, LLC, and Matthew Valentinas, Mom's Basement Management. Written by me, M. William Phelps. Audio mastering and mixing by Matt Russell. Music by Epidemic Sound. Original music written and performed by Thomas Mooney, Tom Phelps, and Matt Russell.